Alexa. Well, almost 6 years ago, three young men who traveled across Europe courageously stopped a terrorist from opening fire on a train from Amsterdam to Paris. One of those brave men joins us on the show today, Alek Skarlatos, a former Army National Guard turned actor, I think that's safe to say, turned congressional candidate running for Oregon's 4th District. Hey, Alek, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So, Alek, we know that you've ran once. This will be your second time. I want to know how the transition into politics has been, and why do you think the odds are in your favor this time around?
Well, the transition into politics has been very interesting. It's a very dirty business, but to be honest, I kind of enjoy the competition of the whole thing. And at the end of the day, someone has to do it. I mean, I'm running for office because I really believe the people in Southwestern Oregon need help and they're not getting representation from the current congressman. And the reason I think we have a better chance this time is Oregon is one of the 6 states getting a new congressional district. That will either push our district into a more Republican area, or the Democrats will give us a Republican district to run in so that they can reinforce all the other Democrat districts in the state.
Well, I want to ask you this because you are representing Portland, or Oregon, I should say. When you look at last year's protest that did take place in Portland following the death of George Floyd, you know, headlines were there almost daily. And when you see your state that you're representing suffering like that, with businesses being burned to the ground, you know, a community up in shambles, what is your message for those living in that sort of fragmented reality?
Well, I'm not sure if there's any getting to people that are living in Portland, really. I mean, if they choose to live in Portland, it's usually because they agree with that kind of thing. For the most part, there are some people in the suburbs with common sense. But to be honest, it's really kind of a wake-up call to the rest of Oregon and hopefully the rest of the country as to where these kinds of policies that the Biden administration are enacting could very well lead, not just in Portland and Seattle and New York, but really across the entire country.
Well, there's certainly problems with the Biden admin, no doubt about that. But when we're talking about the GOP and the Republican Party, there's a huge divide, as you may know. Where do you see the driving failures of the GOP that you can come in and clean up?
Well, I would just work on uniting the party. I mean, that's something that I think President Trump did do a better job of later on in his term in office. But that being said, there are still some rhinos, if you will, in the party, or moderate Republicans that represent deep red states. And I think getting some better representation to people in those more Republican areas would be great for the Republican Party. I mean, you can have moderate Republicans in moderate districts, but if you're in a safe red district, you should be a firebrand and a very outspoken conservative.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, from a policy front, what is one thing you are fiery and passionate about that you want your constituents to see in you?
Well, it's definitely not sexy, but forest management is probably one of my biggest priorities, stopping these massive forest fires, getting people back out into the woods, actually harvesting timber, not only generating money for the economy, but it's actually tied to the tax base of our local counties here. And beyond that, I mean, just their national issues like securing the border, protecting our Second Amendment rights. That's something I'm incredibly passionate about, just to due to what I survived in the middle of a gun-free continent in Europe. I mean, it's something that's very important, and we cannot. I just want to be part of the Republican Party that expands freedom instead of just defends it.
Well said. So we know that you were in the movie 1517 to Paris, and you played yourself in that really critical and brave role, might I add. Was there anything from there that kind of opened your eyes into seeing where it could transcend into politics from a defense standpoint, what we need to do to keep our country and our defense protected at all costs?
I wouldn't necessarily say the movie had anything to do with that, but definitely almost dying on a train to Paris kind of opened my eyes. We only have one life to live, and to really make the most of it. And I mean, I'm in a position to where I'm able to help people in Southwestern Oregon, and I'm going to do my best job to actually get that done.
All right. Well, we'll see. Is there anywhere we can go to find more about you, Alek?
AlekForOregon.com. We definitely appreciate all the help we can get. Thanks.